Meantime, the head of the largest manufacturing association here in the U.S. is getting set to deliver an address on the future of the industry. Tomorrow kicks off a 7-city tour that will focus on everything from jobs and AI adoption to President Donald Trump's tariffs. President and CEO National Association Manufacturers Jay Timmons will deliver that address. Good morning to you, Jay. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
You're about to be really busy for the next week. So talk about the future of domestic production. Where will we see this happen?
So the production or the tour? So the tour actually starts in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. One of the reasons we wanted to start there was to emphasize the connection with innovation to manufacturing and why that superpowers manufacturing. And what I believe we will see over the next coming decades is a resurgence of manufacturing investment and job creation here in the United States. We've seen that since 2017, and for manufacturers, the tax reforms that were implemented that year were extremely important. Getting them renewed last year was extremely important. Regulatory certainty and modernization is important. Energy dominance is important. Trade, we want to see some certainty there. If that happens, I think you'll see some amazing progress over the course of the next few years and decades.
So let me ask you about the president's promised tariffs. He says that these tariffs will help bring factories and jobs back to the United States. How are those policies right now currently affecting manufacturing in this country?
It's a great question, Vlad, and I think that chapter has yet to be written, meaning the impact of tariffs, right? So if you ask manufacturers, I think you probably get a fairly unanimous opinion that they don't like tariffs because it drives up the cost of doing business, right? What you're doing on the other side of the ledger to drive down the cost of doing business is equally, if not more important. Again, taxes, regulation, energy. If those costs are coming down, then manufacturers can maneuver and deal with some increased costs coming from tariffs. What they really want to see is they want to see predictability and certainty. So that means, Mr. President, if you're going to impose tariffs, and we know that that is important to you, so we assume that's going to happen, then do it, put it in writing, and make sure we know what the rules of the road are moving forward. That helps with investment decisions in the future. So if you also think in terms of trade agreements, the USMCA, which the president negotiated in his first term, and he has right to be proud of that, but it needs some improvements, and he wants to improve it. When we see that done, I think that gives us even more certainty and predictability here in the United States.
So let's talk about tariffs and the impact that it's had here on consumers and producers. So what are we hearing from industry leaders about how they're trying to now curb foreign production?
Well, look, I think we've spent decades, 5, 6 decades, growing this global economy, and it's a very interdependent economy. And frankly, over the last year, we've pretty well said, okay, we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to focus on the United States. That has been the policy of the United States government. And so it involves a lot of difficult decisions for manufacturers as they figure out where that next dollar is going to be invested, and how they can move supply chains to the United States from, let's say, China, Southeast Asia. A lot of that started occurring during the pandemic, where we saw some terrible shortages of things that we needed. And manufacturers, I think, accepted the challenge, and they want to see those supply chains and the reliability of supply chains happen right here in the United States.
But that's going to mean higher prices for us, no?
Well, again, let's look at one side of the ledger. If we're driving down the cost on taxes and regulations, not necessarily. One of the things that we do really well here in the United States is we actually happily pay our workers more than other areas of the world. So there is a cost associated with that. But quite frankly, we're pretty proud of that fact, right? Manufacturers actually pay more than any other sector of the economy. And one of the reasons for that is because these are good, long-lasting jobs that are important to the success of our country economically.
I guess I'm just wondering what you would say to people who aren't prepared to pay more for things they're used to paying a certain amount for. Let's say, a t-shirt for $15.
Yeah, so I'm hopeful that as more production locates here in the United States, you'll start to see some of that leveling off. Saw a little bit of the inflation rate cool down, not enough, I would say, over the course of the last few months. Hopefully that trend will continue.
So let me ask you, Jay, about automation and specifically artificial intelligence. what will we see in the years ahead? I mean, people are suggesting, people who are very smart, that automation and artificial intelligence will wipe out many traditional jobs, including in manufacturing. What are you hearing?
So I don't think I would characterize it that way.
Yeah.
One thing about manufacturing, if you look at it over the course of centuries, is every generation, the jobs and the skills necessary for those jobs evolve. So I'm starting, as I said, the tour at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And 125 years ago, when manufacturers produced the first wax record, basically, folks were up in arms saying, it's going to destroy music in this country, and music professionals, they won't be necessary anymore. Well, of course they are, and the music industry has only grown. And that's because we've evolved, and every industry evolves. So what you'll see with AI is you're going to see manufacturing done differently. So we currently have 433,000 open jobs, Vlad, in manufacturing today. That number has been fairly consistent every month for the last decade or so, even more than that. And that number is going to grow by 2 million in the year 2033 if folks don't have the right skills, and a lot of that is related to AI and getting the skills necessary to operate that.
Okay, so then my follow-up question would be, Jay, then, are you able to pay those people who take those jobs a wage that allows them to have the kind of lives that when we were at the height of manufacturing in this country in the post-World War II era, where our parents were able to own their house, and some of them even had like a little tiny beach house, and they were working at the Ford factory, or they were working in steel mills in Pittsburgh. The question is, can you keep up with the pace and the rate of inflation?
So I think we are, right? And again, we pay more than any other sector of the economy, on average. Not every job does, but on average, we pay more than other sectors of the economy. And I think that's why people like to actually go into manufacturing. That's what, to your point, that's what my grandfather did. He went from the farm and decided he wanted to be part of manufacturing at the Mead Paper Mill in my hometown of Chillicothe, Ohio. And that allowed our family to become part of the middle class. I know that manufacturers the demand is there for those jobs, which means the salaries and the pay, also is there as well.
So I guess last question would be then, why have so many of these jobs gone overseas?
Again, with a large number unfilled, part of the reason for that is there's two reasons. One, we don't have the people here that are doing the jobs. We haven't trained the people. We haven't encouraged the people to come into the sector. Another is, until 2017, our tax policy for manufacturers was pretty bad. We were basically sending a signal to manufacturers: we don't want you. You go there where it's cheaper to make where the tax rate is cheaper, where the regulatory system is more inviting, where energy is less expensive, right? And so we started to focus. Every president I've worked with in this job, so George W. Bush, Barack Obama, Trump 1, Biden, Trump 2, they all wanted to grow manufacturing in the United States. And I have to give credit to this president for his tax and regulatory policy. Have to say that President Biden was very focused on chips, the chips industry, as well as investment in infrastructure. And so together, when you see all of those policy changes being put in place to reduce the cost of doing business here and to incentivize manufacturers to invest here, that's how you see that growth.
I will say that we had Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro on CBS Mornings a few weeks ago, and I asked him specifically about this, and he has talked about implementing a policy in Pennsylvania that doesn't focus so much on the myth that you have to go to college to be able to get a job. That he wants to train people to take on these manufacturing jobs across multiple industries, because he thinks that is the future.
Governor Shapiro has been a great champion for manufacturing growth. And his focus on trade schools and technical schools and education, I think that's what you're seeing from other governors across the country who want to attract manufacturing investment to their shores.
Jay Timmons, thank you very much for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate being here.